The shuttle doors opened with a soft hiss, and Leo stepped into the wide, glowing halls of Galaxy Academy. The floor was smooth silver. The walls pulsed with soft blue light, and floating screens hovered in the air showing news from across them. Galaxy. Leo adjusted the straps of his school bag and took a deep breath. He was the first human student ever accepted into Galaxy Academy. It was an elite school located on a space station in orbit. Around a peaceful star, students came from dozens of alien worlds, each one more strange and exciting than the last. But right now, Leo wasn't thinking about how exciting this place was. He was thinking about how many eyes were staring at him. Tall creatures with 4 arms, small ones with glowing eyes, floating gas beings with no legs. Leo felt their gazes as he walked by, curious, quiet, and a little surprised. He kept walking, trying to look confident. He reminded himself that he earned his place here. He had passed every test, every interview. He was not here by luck. He was here because he deserved it. But it still felt lonely. When he entered classroom 3B. The quiet chatter stopped for a moment. Leo sat near the back, his hands tight on the desk. Around him, students spoke in many languages, but the school's translator chip in his ear turned everything into English. Then she walked in, tall, graceful, with light blue skin and white hair tied back. Her eyes were sharp like crystal. Her name was Nara, and she was from Zalari, a cold planet known for its warriors, philosophers, and long traditions. Nara wore the academy uniform, but her posture made her look like royalty. She walked past Leo and glanced at him. Her nose twitched. Then she smirked. "Oh, look," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. They really accepted a human. Some students chuckled softly. Leo's face turned warm, but he didn't say anything. He kept his eyes on the screen in front of him. Maybe if he ignored her, she'd stop. But Nara didn't stop. "I thought humans were still learning how to build spaceships," she continued. "Are you here to study or to take notes on how real species live?" Now the laughter was louder. Leo stayed silent. He had read about Zalari people, proud, strong, cold just like their planet. They often looked down on other species, especially ones they thought were weak. He wasn't going to fight back with words. Not here. Not yet. The teacher entered, a tall insect-like being with 4 glowing eyes, and began the lesson. Throughout the class, Leo took careful notes. He listened. He answered one question about ancient star maps, and the teacher nodded with approval. But he could feel Nara's eyes on him, watching, judging. During lunch, Leo sat alone near the window. Outside, the stars floated like glitter, and ships passed. In slow silence, he opened his lunch pack, a small box with food from Earth. Nothing fancy, just protein cubes and fruit slices. He had barely taken a bite when Nara appeared beside his table. "Still eating soft food?" she said with a raised eyebrow. "Don't humans have teeth?" Leo looked up. "Do Zalari always interrupt other people's meals?" That caught her off guard for a second. She smiled. "You do have a little fire in you. I'll give you that." Leo stood up slowly. "Look, I don't know what your problem is, but I didn't come here to fight with anyone. I came to learn." "Learn," she repeated, stepping closer. "From us? That's funny." Leo didn't move. "Yes, from all of you." "I don't think that's funny. I think it's smart." Nara didn't respond. She looked at him, really, looked at him for the first time. Then she turned and walked away. That evening, Leo lay on his bed in his small dorm room. The walls glowed dimly, adjusting to his Earth preference for night. He stared at the ceiling, the events of the day circling in his mind. He wasn't angry. He was disappointed. Back on Earth, he had imagined aliens would be different from humans, more advanced, more open-minded. But Nara reminded him that pride and prejudice existed across the stars too. Still, he wasn't going to let one student ruin this chance. He reached into his backpack and pulled out a small photo. His family, smiling and waving as he boarded the shuttle back on Earth. "You're going to make us proud," his mom had said. He looked at the photo for a long moment, then placed it on the desk beside him. "I will," he whispered. The next day, Leo walked into class with a steady step. He ignored the whispers and the curious glances. when the teacher asked a question about gravitational differences in interplanetary travel. Leo raised his hand. He answered clearly and correctly. Even the teacher seemed impressed. From the corner of his eye, he noticed Nara watching him. Her sharp eyes narrowed, not with mockery this time, but with something else: interest, suspicion. Leo didn't know, but something had changed, and deep down, he felt it. This was just the beginning. The next week at Galaxy Academy started with a new project in Xeno-history class. The teacher, a tall, multi-eyed creature named Professor Ven, moved around the classroom slowly as he explained the assignment. You will work in small teams, he said, his voice buzzing through the translator chip. Your topic: cultural rise and fall of ancient civilizations. Choose a species other than your own. Leo listened carefully. He enjoyed history, especially learning how different species developed over time. Earth was new to the galactic community, but its journey had been difficult and full of challenges. He hoped he could share that. Then came the part he wasn't ready for. Team 1, Nara, Leo, and Corin, the professor announced. Leo blinked. He heard a deep sigh from across the room. Nara slowly stood up from her seat, her arms crossed. Corin, a round orange being with antennae, rolled forward cheerfully. Leo got up and joined them at a nearby table. Nara didn't say anything at first. She just stared at Leo with a look of clear annoyance. Corin broke the silence. So, what ancient culture should we pick? Leo cleared his throat. Maybe Earth? I could explain the early empires, the space age, the rebuilding after the climate collapse. It's of course you'd suggest Earth, Nara cut in, folding her arms. I said other than your own species? Or do you not listen well? Leo held his tongue for a moment, then spoke calmly. I was just offering. We don't have to choose Earth. Corin gave a small hum. Well, Earth is kind of new, right? Maybe that's a good thing. Something fresh. Nara looked at both of them like they were speaking nonsense. There's nothing to learn from humans. Their planet nearly destroyed itself twice. They've only been in space for a few centuries. That's nothing. Leo felt heat rise in his chest but kept his tone even. Surviving destruction is part of the story. Maybe that's what makes it interesting. Nara turned away. Fine, you write your piece. I'll do mine on the ancient empires of Zeleri. At least they had real history. Corin looked between them nervously. Can't we just combine both somehow? But Nara was already pulling up her holo screen, ignoring them. After class, Leo walked through the open courtyard of the academy. Trees with glowing leaves lined the paths, and small floating creatures buzzed from branch to branch. He sat down on a bench, resting his bag beside him. He was used to being different. Earth was still small in the galaxy, but being treated like he had nothing to offer hurt more than he wanted to admit. Just then, a tall shadow stopped in front of him. It was Professor Ven. You handled yourself well, the teacher said. Leo looked up. Thanks, Professor. But it's hard. I thought coming here would be about learning, but it feels like proving myself every day. Ven's eyes blinked in different directions. That's how every new species begins. Long ago, the Zeleri were also outsiders. Now they act like rulers. Leo was surprised. Really? I didn't know that. Few do. Which is why history must be told by many voices, the professor said. Then he walked off, his long limbs tapping the ground gently. Leo thought about those words for a long time. That evening, Leo researched late into the night. He wanted to make his part of the project meaningful, not just facts and dates, but a real story, something that showed how humans had struggled, survived, and kept moving forward. He included the early days of space travel, the rebuilding of Earth's cities after the climate crisis, and the moment when Earth's nations finally joined together to form the United Earth Council. He wrote about how humans didn't have the strongest bodies or longest lifespans, but they had hope, curiosity, and persistence, and that made them dangerous in a good way. The next day, their group met again. Corin arrived bouncing with energy. Nara was already at the table, looking at her screen. Leo handed her a data chip. Here's my part of the report. You can add it to the presentation if you want. She took it without looking at him. As she scanned the contents, Her expression changed slightly. Her brows lowered, her lips pressed together. She didn't speak. Corn peeked over. "Ho, you did all this last night?" "Yeah," Leo said. "Didn't sleep much?" Nara said nothing, but she copied the data to her device. After a few moments of silence, she finally asked, "You really think your people are strong because they keep trying?" Leo looked at her. "Yes, we're not perfect, but we learn, and we don't give up." She didn't answer, but she didn't insult him either. Later that afternoon, while walking through the library, Leo overheard two older students talking. "Did you hear what Nara did last year?" One whispered. "She refused to work with a Gloth because they lost a war against her people centuries ago. Yeah, she thinks honor comes from strength. No wonder she hates humans." Leo stopped behind a bookcase and frowned. Was that why she treated him this way? Because of something that happened between humans and Zilari a long time ago? He went to the history terminal and searched Zilari-human conflict. The results surprised him. Long ago, a Zilari scout ship had tried to claim a small moon for mining, but it had been stopped by a human fleet. No shots were fired, but the Zilari saw it as a defeat. Since then, many on Zilari believed humans had shamed them. Leo sat back in his chair. So that's what this was really about. Not just teasing. Pride, legacy, a quiet grudge. But maybe, just maybe, Nara was beginning to question it. Back in the dorm that night, Leo sat at his desk and wrote a message on his screen. It was short, just a few lines. Then he sent it to Nara. "I know we come from different worlds, but we're on the same team now. Let's show the class something better than rivalry. Let's show them respect." He didn't know if she would answer, but for the first time, he felt like something was starting to shift. The classroom was quiet as Professor Venn wrote a new topic on the glowing board. Interspecies leadership styles, the heading read. Most students watched with interest, but Leo's attention was elsewhere. He was still thinking about the message he sent to Nara the night before. She hadn't replied. Their last group meeting had ended without any argument, which was an improvement. She hadn't insulted him once, and she had actually included his work in their shared file. But the silence between them felt heavy. Leo wasn't sure if she was changing or just waiting for another chance to mock him again. "Your next task," Professor Venn continued, "is a short debate next class. 2 students will compare their homeworld's leadership approach in front of everyone." He paused, then said, "Leo and Nara, you've been selected." Leo looked up in surprise. Nara slowly turned her head toward him. Her expression was unreadable. After class, Nara approached Leo near the lockers. "You better prepare yourself," she said, her tone cold. "I don't plan to lose." Leo gave a small nod. "It's not a fight. It's a debate, for me." She said, "There's no difference." She walked away, her silver blue hair catching the hallway lights. Leo sighed. That evening, Leo worked hard on his presentation. He pulled up records of Earth's past leaders, some good, some flawed. He focused on how humans learn from failure, how democracy helped them grow, and how leaders on Earth were expected to serve others, not rule over them. He didn't want to argue with Nara. He wanted to explain, to be heard. He just hoped she would listen. The next day, the classroom was full. Many students from other classes had joined to watch the debate. Word had spread quickly. A Zilari and a human debating in front of the class? Everyone was curious. Professor Venn stood between them. "Leo will begin," he said. Leo stepped forward. A small hover screen lit up beside him. "Human leadership," he began, "has changed many times. We've had kings, presidents, councils. But what stayed the same is our belief that no leader is above the people. A good leader is chosen by others, and their job is to protect, not command." He showed images of Earth cities, spaceports, and voting councils. Some students leaned in with interest. Even Nara watched quietly. "We make mistakes," Leo continued, "but we grow by learning. We believe that strength is not about control. It's about understanding." He stepped back. There was a small pause, then some polite applause. Then it was Nara's turn. She walked to the front with slow, confident steps. "On Zilari," she began, Leaders are not chosen by weak words. They rise through action, through proof of strength, honor, and wisdom. Our leaders are warriors and scholars. They lead because they earn respect, not because they beg for it. Her voice was clear, cold, and proud. When a leader speaks, she said, others listen. We do not argue. We do not vote. We follow. Because our leaders have proven they can carry us through fire and storm. The room was silent. Then, without warning, she turned to Leo. And that is why humans, she said sharply, are not ready to lead themselves, let alone anyone else. They doubt, they question, they fall apart when challenged. The room shifted uncomfortably. Leo felt his chest tighten. He had expected disagreement, but not a direct insult. Humans, Nara said, hide behind machines and rules. They fear power because they don't understand it. Several students looked at each other. A few whispered. Professor Venn raised a hand, but Nara kept going. Leo stepped forward before the professor could stop her. If we fear power, Leo said, keeping his voice calm, it's because we've seen what happens when power goes too far. We've had leaders who destroyed. Instead of helped, we've had wars, disasters. That's why we question. That's why we try to make things better. He looked around the room, his voice growing stronger. We don't follow someone just because they shout the loudest or fight the best. We follow those who care. The class was completely silent now. Leo added, maybe that's what scares you, that we think before we follow. Nara's eyes widened slightly. She took a small step back. Surprised. Professor Venn finally stepped in. That will be enough for today. After class, the stories spread fast across the school network. Human vs. Larry, heated debate. Read one headline. Videos showed clips of Nara's bold speech and Leo's quiet but powerful reply. Students started forming opinions. Some supported Nara's strength and tradition. Others admired Leo's logic and calm courage. Leo didn't check the comments. He didn't want to. Instead, he sat alone in the quiet study garden behind the academy. Artificial birds chirped in the trees, and a gentle wind passed through the leaves. Footsteps approached. He didn't look up until she spoke. You didn't have to embarrass me, Nara said softly. Leo shook his head. I didn't want to. I just wanted to tell the truth. She sat beside him, silent for a long time. I've never lost a debate before, she said. Leo smiled slightly. Maybe it wasn't about winning. Nara looked at him. You don't act like the humans I was taught about. What were you taught? Leo asked. That you were weak, emotional, that your world was a mess. Some of that's true, Leo said. But we're more than our mistakes. Nara nodded slowly. Maybe I should stop judging by old stories. They sat there quietly, the garden calm around them. Back in her room that night, Nara stared at her screen. A dozen messages from Zolari friends filled her inbox. Most of them surprised by her loss. Some were rude. A few mocked her. But one message stood out. It was from her older sister, a senior officer in the Zolari fleet. Respect is earned, yes, but sometimes strength looks like patience. He showed you that. Think about it. She stared at the message for a long time. Then she closed her screen and sat back. Something inside her was changing. It was a quiet morning at Galaxy Academy, and the air inside the classroom buzzed with curiosity. A new assignment had just been announced by Professor Venn, and it was different from anything the students had done before. Each student, the professor said, will present a report on an alien species of their choice. You must focus on something positive about them, something that is not often known or respected. He looked around the room, challenged her views, learned something new. Leo's eyes lit up. He knew exactly which species he would choose, his own. After class, some students gathered in small groups to discuss their topics. Leo sat at the back, typing ideas into his tablet. Across the room, Nara was quiet. She hadn't made fun of him since the debate. In fact, she hadn't said much at all. She seemed thoughtful now, as if she was still trying to understand what had happened. Leo caught her looking his way. She quickly looked down at her own screen. He smiled a little, then returned to his work. That evening, Leo sat in the quiet library. The tall shelves were filled with glowing data cubes and ancient scrolls from dozens of worlds. He chose a quiet corner near the Earth section and began writing his report. He didn't want to just list facts. He wanted to tell a story, a real one. He wrote about Earth's early years, how humans learned to survive storms, wild animals, and harsh lands, how they built tools, learned to farm, and crossed oceans without knowing what was on the other side. He added the hard parts too: wars, disease, and the near destruction of the planet during the climate crisis. But he made it clear that humans didn't give up. They rebuilt, they joined hands, and they reached for the stars. The next day, the presentations began. Students from many species gave interesting talks. A Gloth student spoke about the intelligence of cloud beings. A lizard person praised the peaceful culture of tree dwellers from planet Maru. Then it was Leo's turn. He walked to the front of the class. The room grew quiet. The screen behind him lit up with images of Earth forests, cities, oceans, spaceports, and more. "I'm Leo," he began, "and today I want to tell you about humans." He paused, then added, "But not just what you may have heard. I want to tell you the truth about us." He showed images of ancient tools made from stone. "We began with nothing. No claws, no armor, just hands and minds." Then came pictures of early villages, old libraries, and ships sailing across rough seas. "We crossed dangerous lands and oceans, not because we were fearless but because we were curious." He moved to pictures of great inventions: medicine, machines, rockets. "We made mistakes, big ones. We hurt our own world, but we learned." Then a photo of a crowd cheering under Earth's first space elevator. "And when we left our planet, we did it not to escape but to connect." Leo's voice stayed calm, but firm. "We are not the strongest species, not the fastest, not the longest living, but we grow, we adapt, and when we fall, we stand up again." He ended with a quote on the screen: "Hope is our oldest tool, and still our sharpest." There was silence for a moment, then a few claps, then more. Even Nara clapped. Leo walked back to the seat. His heart beat fast, but he felt proud, really proud. When class ended, Nara approached him. She didn't smile, but her voice was calm. "I didn't know Earth had suffered so much." Leo looked at her. "We don't always show it. Sometimes we hide our pain, but we remember it." She nodded. "Your report was different. It wasn't just facts. It felt real." "It is real," Leo said. "That's why it matters." There was a long pause. Then she asked, "Do you think we can grow like that too?" "Even my people," Leo smiled. "Everyone can, if they want to." Later that day, Leo was walking through the academy's garden when he saw two younger students arguing. One was from a water-based species, the other from a fire-based one. Their disagreement had started over a game, but now it had turned personal. "You wouldn't understand," the fire being shouted. "Your kind always runs. At least we don't destroy everything we touch." The water being shouted back. Leo stepped between them. "Hey, stop. Listen to yourselves." They both turned to him. "I know how it feels to be judged. I know what it's like when someone assumes you're weak or wrong just because of where you're from." The students looked surprised. "But that's not who we are at this school," Leo said. "We learn." Together, slowly, the two students lowered their voices. One mumbled an apology. The other nodded. Leo smiled, then walked away. That night, Leo sat in his dorm, looking out at the stars. The view never got old. He opened a message on his screen. It was from Professor Venn. "Excellent presentation. You reminded the class that strength isn't always loud and that history must include truth, not just pride." Leo closed the message and leaned back in his chair. He didn't need to be the strongest in the room. He just needed to be himself, and that was finally enough. Meanwhile, in her own room, Nara stared at a blank screen. The assignment was finished, but her mind wasn't quiet. She kept thinking about Leo's words, his story, his world. He had no armor, no claws, no battle trophies, and yet something about him felt stronger than she had expected. Not because he fought back, but because he stood firm. She looked down at her own report and whispered, Maybe strength really does have more than one shape. The halls of Galaxy Academy were quieter than usual that morning. A soft buzz of voices filled the air, but the usual laughter and noise had faded. Leo walked slowly to the cafeteria, his thoughts deep, his presentation from the day before still echoed in his mind. It had gone better than he expected. For the first time, students had clapped for him not because he was human, but because they understood, or at least, they were beginning to. He stood in line for breakfast, holding a tray. When he heard a voice behind him, Leo, he turned around. It was Nara. She looked different today. Not in appearance, she still wore the same clean uniform, her white hair tied neatly. But her expression had changed. Her eyes weren't sharp like before. They were softer. Almost unsure. Leo blinked. Yeah, can we talk? She asked. Leo nodded slowly. Sure. They moved to a quiet corner near the large windows. The stars outside twinkled in the endless black, and far in the distance, a freighter ship floated past the academy. Nara didn't sit right away. She stood for a moment, arms crossed, then finally lowered herself into the seat across from him. There was a long pause. I've been thinking, she said. About you? About everything I said when we first met. Leo stayed quiet. She looked down at the table. I was wrong. He didn't expect that. Not from her. Nara kept her voice low. On Zalari, we're taught that strength is everything, that emotion is weakness, that tradition is law. We learn from victory, not from failure. That's what I believed. Leo leaned in slightly, listening. But after watching your report and seeing how you speak, how you handle pressure, she stopped. You didn't fight back with anger. You didn't show hate, even when I gave you every reason to. Leo smiled gently. I wasn't here to fight. I came to learn. I mocked you, Nara said, finally meeting his eyes. I called your species weak. I judged you before I even knew you. I know, Leo said honestly, but I also saw you listening. That matters. She sighed. My sister messaged me after the debate. She told me that true strength isn't only about power, it's about control, respect, and patience. She said you showed me that. Leo raised an eyebrow. Your sister's in the military, right? Yes. One of our best commanders. Nara gave a small smile. She said if more leaders acted like you, fewer battles would start. Leo didn't know what to say to that. He just nodded. Then Nara looked him in the eyes. I'm sorry, Leo, she said clearly, for everything I said, for the way I treated you. Leo looked at her, surprised by how honest she sounded. There was no pride in her tone, no bitterness, just truth. I accept your apology, he said. There was silence for a few seconds, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Then Nara asked, friends? Leo grinned. Yeah, friends. From that day on, things began to change. The next time they had group work in history class, Nara didn't argue. She listened. She even asked Leo for his opinion on how to present their ideas. I don't always understand human thinking, she said with a smirk, but you explain it well. Leo laughed. That's a compliment, right? Maybe. During lunch breaks, they sometimes sat together. Other students noticed. Some were surprised. Others followed their example. Soon, groups of mixed species could be seen across the academy working together, laughing, learning. Even Professor Vent seemed pleased. You see, he said one day during a lecture, when we stop judging, we start growing. One afternoon, Leo and Nara walked through the Sky Garden, a large open area inside the academy with real trees, soft grass, and a sky dome that changed color with the hour. Back home, Nara said, we don't have places like this. Our world is cold, full of snow and wind. Nature's dangerous there. We build strong walls, not gardens. Leo nodded. Earth is wild places too, but we try to protect them now. We learned the hard way. I used to think your people were soft, Nara admitted, brushing her fingers over the leaves of a glowing flower. But now I see your strength is quiet. It doesn't shout. Leo looked at the sky dome, which was turning golden like an earth sunset. Sometimes quiet strength is the kind that lasts the longest, he said. Nara smiled. That weekend, a message came through the academy's main system. a school-wide event, was being planned, the Unity Trials, a team-based challenge designed to test cooperation between students of different species. Leo read the details. Each team would be sent into a simulated alien environment with missions to complete. They would need to rely on each other's skills, knowledge, and quick thinking. At the bottom of the message was a list of team pairings. Leo scrolled until he saw his name. Team 6, Leo Human, Nara Zaleri, Corin Bugary. He smiled. This was going to be interesting. Later that night, Nara knocked on Leo's door. He opened it, surprised. She held up her tablet. Did you see the team list? Yeah, Leo said. Looks like we're partners again. She nodded. And this time, I won't try to lead everything. We'll work together. Leo laughed. Well, that's good. I'd rather not freeze on a simulated ice planet because someone refused to read the instructions. Nara smirked. I'll read them this time. Maybe. They stood there for a moment. Then Nara asked, do you think your people and mine could ever be real allies one day? Leo looked thoughtful. If two students in a classroom can move past their differences, then yeah, I think our worlds can too. She nodded slowly. Then let's prove it. As Nara walked away down the hallway, Leo closed his door with a smile. The girl who once mocked him had now apologized. And more than that, she had changed. Not because someone forced her to, but because she opened her mind. And maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something even bigger. Snowflakes fell like soft feathers. As the simulation began, Leo stood at the edge of a wide frozen plain. Cold air brushing against his face, even though it was a holographic training room. Everything felt real, the icy wind, the crunch of snow beneath his boots, and the gray clouds above. Beside him stood Nara, calm and focused, her white hair blowing slightly in the wind. On the other side, their third teammate, Corin, buzzed quietly. Corin was a tall insect-like being from Bugary Prime, with 6 legs and 2 large green eyes that moved independently. A loud voice echoed in the sky above them. Welcome to the Unity Trials. Team 6, your mission, reach the energy beacon on the mountain and activate it. Time limit, 3 hours. Survive the storm. Work as one. The wind grew louder. Leo pulled up his jacket. Well, here we go. The team started walking across the icy ground. Snow covered everything. Visibility was low. Each step felt harder as the cold pressed in. Corin clicked his mandibles. I will scout ahead. My eyes can see better in storms. Leo nodded. Good idea. But stay close. As Corin moved quickly across the snow, Nara walked beside Leo. She didn't speak much, but Leo could tell she was watching everything, reading the land. Planning steps. Do you know how to survive in this kind of cold? Leo asked her. I grew up in it, she replied. This is similar to my home planet. Then you lead. Leo said with a smile. Nara hesitated. Only if we decide things together. Leo gave a thumbs up. They pressed on, walking through the freezing land, following Corin's footprints and markings in the snow. After about 30 minutes, the wind howled stronger. A sudden gust knocked Leo off balance. Watch out! Nara grabbed his arm just in time. Leo laughed. I'm starting to think Earth winters are nothing compared to this. She smirked. Now you understand. Suddenly, Corin signaled from ahead with one of his arms. Trouble. He clicked. They reached him and saw what he meant. A wide ice crevice stretched across their path. It was deep to see the bottom. The beacon's signal on there. Map blinked just beyond it. There's no way across, Leo said. There might be, Nara replied. She pulled out a small device from her belt. It created a temporary energy bridge, but the battery was limited. They could only use it once. This can take 2 of us. One must find another way, she said. I'll go first, Leo offered. If it works, I'll help from the other side. Nara nodded. She activated the device, and a glowing blue bridge appeared over the crevice. Buzzing softly in the cold air. Leo took a breath and stepped forward. The bridge held firm. Step by step, he crossed to the other side. Snow blew round him, and the bridge flickered slightly. He made it. I'm over. He shouted. Nara turned to Corin. Go next. You're heavier. It may fail if you're last. Corin hesitated but agreed. He walked across, carefully, his insect legs tapping the glowing light. Halfway through, the bridge flickered hard. "Hurry!" Leo shouted. Corin ran the rest of the way and jumped just as the bridge disappeared. He landed safely, clicking in relief. Nara was still on the other side. Leo called out, "Can we reactivate the bridge?" "No," she said. "Battery is dead." She looked around, then pointed to a narrow ledge running along the crevice wall. "I'll take that path. Stay here." Leo frowned. "That's dangerous, I know," she said simply, "but I've done worse." Without another word, Nara began moving along the ledge. The icy rock crumbled in places, but her steps were steady. Leo and Corin watched in silence. Every second felt longer. Then, with a final step, Nara jumped and rolled onto their side of the crevice. Leo helped her up. "You're insane." "Maybe," she said, brushing snow off her coat. They continued their journey. Moving uphill now, the path grew steeper and snow piled higher. The wind roared louder. "Storm's getting worse," Corin said, shielding his face. "We're close," Nara said. "Keep going." But then, without warning, the ground cracked. A hidden ice pit opened below Leo's feet. He shouted as he fell straight into a small icy cave beneath the surface. "Leo," Nara called. He landed hard, snow flying around him. Pain shot through his leg. "I'm okay," he called up, "but I think my ankle's twisted." Nara looked around, then tied a rope to Corin's leg. "Lower me down." Carefully, she dropped into the pit and reached Leo. "You always fall into things," she teased. He winced. "Maybe I'm just testing gravity." She helped wrap his ankle and gave him her shoulder for support. "Let's get out of here." With Corin's help, they pulled Leo back to the surface. The clock ticked. 1 hour left. Despite the pain, Leo kept moving, leaning on Nara when needed. Finally, through the blowing snow, they saw a tall metal beacon, glowing faintly at the top of a rocky hill. They climbed together, reaching the top. Corin plugged in the activation code. A bright light flashed. The beacon glowed blue. A voice announced in the air, "Team 6, challenge complete. Time taken, 2 hours, 43 minutes. Excellent teamwork." They collapsed in the snow. Breathing hard, Leo smiled. "We did it." Nara looked at him. "You did it with a hurt leg." "You helped me walk," Corin buzzed proudly, "and I didn't fall in a hole." They laughed together, their voices rising above the wind. Later, back in the academy, they were handed certificates for completing the Unity trial. Professor Venn smiled as he handed Leo his. "You showed more than strength," he said. "You showed trust." Leo looked at his teammates. "We make a good team." Nara nodded. "We do." She held up her certificate. "But next time, no more falling." Leo grinned. "The deal." A week had passed since the Unity trial. Leo sat alone in the academy garden. The trees here had blue leaves, and small floating lights danced in the air, glowing softly. He held the trial badge in his hand, turning it slowly. The wind was gentle, but his thoughts were stormy. Nara had become a true friend now. So had Corin. They had fought together, helped each other, and passed the hardest test of the academy. But Leo had received a message this morning, a private one from Earth's Defense Council. They wanted him back, return immediately. The message had said, "We need humans like you in the Earth Command. Full rank, your own ship, a high position." He had earned respect here. But back home, they were offering him power. Just then, he heard a quiet voice behind him. "You've been distant today." Leo turned. It was Nara. She wore her dark training suit, her long white hair tied behind her head. She sat beside him without asking. "I got a message," he said softly, "from Earth." He nodded. "They want me back, to join command." Nara was silent for a moment. "That's a great honor," she finally said. Leo looked at her. "I thought I'd be happy, but I'm not sure." "Why?" He hesitated. "Because I've changed here. I've made friends. I learned to see things differently. I don't want to leave that behind." Nara looked at the floating lights. "When I first met you," she said, "I thought humans were weak, loud, reckless. I didn't understand your kind." Leo chuckled. "Yeah, you made that clear." She smiled slightly. "But I was wrong. You showed courage, even when afraid. You never gave up, even when the others looked down on you. He lowered his eyes. So what should I do? She didn't answer directly. Instead, she stood up and said, "There's a ceremony tonight. Final ranks are being shared. You should come." Leo nodded slowly. "I'll be there." The academy's great hall was full of students and teachers. Lights floated in the air. Banners of different worlds hung from the tall walls. It was the last event before graduation. Leo stood in the crowd, wearing his academy uniform. Nara stood on his left, Korin on his right. All three had been chosen for special honors. Professor Ven walked onto the stage and raised his hand. "Students," he said, "this cycle ends today. You came from different worlds with different beliefs, but you leave as one family." Cheers rose. 3 students showed something rare this year. Not just skill, but unity. Team 6, Leo's heart beat faster as the crowd clapped for him. "Nara and Korin, you reminded us that courage is not about power. It is about heart." One by one, they were called forward. Korin received the medal for leadership. Nara received one for strategy and calm under pressure. And Leo was given the Medal of Cross-Species Honor, a rare award for those who created true peace among alien races. As Professor Ven placed it on his neck, he said, "Human, you came here as a stranger. You leave as one of us." After the ceremony, Leo stood outside under the stars. He looked up at the twin moons above the academy. Soft footsteps came behind him. "You haven't decided yet, have you?" Nara asked. "No," he said. "Part of me wants to go home, to serve Earth. The other part wants to stay." She folded her arms. "Earth needs you. But we do too." He turned to her. "Would you be sad if I left?" She met his eyes. Yes. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Leo asked, "Why do you care so much?" Nara looked away for a second. Then back at him, "You made me believe in something I didn't understand before. Friendship, trust, respect for those different from me." She paused. "And maybe something more." Leo stepped closer. "I feel it too." The stars shimmered above them. The next day, Leo walked into the communication room. A final message had come from Earth. "Report by nightfall. Shuttle leaves. In 6 hours. Are you returning?" He stared at the screen. Then he smiled. "No," he whispered. "I already found where I belong." He typed his reply. "I respectfully decline. I have a mission here. With my team." He pressed send. Later that evening, Nara and Korin found him sitting by the garden again. "You're not packing," Korin said. Leo grinned. "I'm not leaving." Nara blinked. "You're staying?" He nodded. "This academy gave me more than Earth could. A team, a purpose, and friends who trust me." Korin buzzed with joy. "Then we stay together." Nara smiled, and for the first time, it was a full smile, soft and true. Weeks passed. The 3 of them became assistant trainers for the new class of students. Leo was now seen as a symbol of peace, proof that a human could be more than just a fighter. One day, while walking past the old training hall, Leo stopped. He remembered the first day he had met Nara, the way she had laughed at him. Now they were partners. Nara came up beside him and said, "Still thinking about the past?" "Just smiling at how far we've come." She looked at him and said, "You surprised everyone." "I surprised myself." They both laughed. And so, the boy who had been mocked for being human became a legend, not because of strength, but because of heart. The academy would remember him not just as a human, but as a hero.